especially after the latest kind of events and the exploit. I think there's been a bit of a shift as to how artists mint on Hic et Nunc, and also how people collect on Hic et Nunc. For example, what I'm seeing is that there's many less big kind of number editions. There's much more, 10, 15, 20 editions, much more one-on-ones, which I think is absolutely reasonable. I guess the big number editions were almost, a way to showcase how art can be accessible for everybody. But at the same time, I think it's important to also figure out where you stand within, like, what is your input and what is your output, and where you stand within that. So multi editions of like 100, 200, 1,000 are great when it's part of a collective, when it's part of a initiative, when it's part of a whatever kind of 100, 1,000. But also at the same time, if art is what if creative output is what you're doing and is what you want to kind of build on, especially within the market and within the industry, I think it's also important for you to kind of all empower yourselves into thinking, okay, what can bring more value to me as an artist and to me as what I'm doing with the way that I'm approaching the market. And so almost, what I suggest is, like, think about the way that you approach the blockchain and approach this industry almost as like your own kind of gallery, essentially. Like, if you think about it, you have a space which is completely blank, whether it's on Hic et Nunc, whether you're on Known Origin, whether you're on any of the gated or non-gated platform. Like, it's essentially your own gallery that you have. Your profile is your gallery. So how can that profile showcase what you're doing, and like be a history and a timeline of your development as an artist in the space, and how you approach each and every body of work that you produce. So if that is not to say put yourself some kind of like rules. I think it's something that I've always like highlighted with everybody, is like, do whatever feels good for you and do what you feel is best. But at the same time, like, do think about it with a perspective of, this is how I am representing myself. This is what my work speaks to. This is how I would like people to see my work and see myself as an artist within the space. Whether it's multi editions, whether it's one-on-ones, whether it's maxi editions, it's almost like they should have should is the wrong word, that they could have like a cohesive following to what you're doing, and to how you're experimenting within the space, especially if you're thinking about long term, right? Like, if you think about this as something that you're going to be doing for the long term, which I think is probably, we're all in here very early. So if you think about this from like 1 or 2 years from now, and if you look back at what your history and timeline of your work will be, it'll be nice to see, the evolution of you as an artist and of your creative process in the space as a timeline of that on the blockchain. And so I think the way that you approach the crypto art market in general, and also the platforms that you decide to work on or mint on, should be a reflection of you as an artist and your creative process and your body of work. What I've always been very platform agnostic. So for me, like, I don't think there is like a good platform and a bad platform. I think every platform has its unique nuances. But I'm also not a super kind of supporter of like kind of duplicating your work on every single platform and almost, like double minting on like Hic et Nunc, Known Origin, Super Rare, or Maker's Place, or Calamint. I think pick and choose your battles. Like it's probably a better approach for you. It's probably again like a better reflection of who you want to be as an individual in the space as well. And if that's Hic et Nunc only, great. If that's Hic et Nunc, Known Origin, and Super Rare, great. But just be mindful of how you're representing yourself, because essentially the whole idea of NFTs and the blockchain is to be your own representation, right? Like you don't that middleman, that kind of like idea of having somebody do that representation for you is ultimately deleted in a way. So you have that full power, and make sure you're using it at your best potential, I guess. I wanted to say something else, but I think I forgot. Stop here and see if there's any question. In the meantime, I think I spoke quite a lot. Questions? No thoughts? I can see Octavia, you're typing, so I'll wait for that.
Cool. It's Khaled.
Hey.
Yeah. So about the platforms, I had a question. So I started minting on OpenSea, and they work on a different contract. I think it's, I don't remember, ERC 1155 or something. And for me, it was obviously convenient because you don't have to pay to mint. So that was like the big attraction. And I also like how it's kind of open and accessible to artists. But I have also heard like collectors or people in general saying that the contract's kind of not very good, or that collectors stay away from it because of the contract. And yeah, I don't know. I have like a series on there that I don't want to, like, I want to continue working on this ongoing series that I have, and I don't want to kind of like switch platforms. But yeah, I mean, I am kind of concerned about that perception of OpenSea and that strange contract. And I don't know, I just wondered if you had any thoughts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was actually tagged, I think, on that thread that you're talking about, which went on for like days. And I was really interested in reading, what like Jimmy, for example, from NFT 42 was saying about this, because obviously he has, a lot of knowledge on the tech side of things. I think, as you mentioned, like probably what, let's say the token standards that are most valued from certain types of collectors, and I highlight the word like certain, are ERC 721. Again, like I think this opens up a wider question, and I guess a conversation, which is also about like collectors in general and the type of collectors that are in the space. If you think about it, when Hic et Nunc started, for example, I was like, very early onto the platform. Me and Mario were pretty much like dabbling and experimenting with it. And I had a lot of collectors that would be like, why are you doing that? Tezos is not a secure like blockchain and blah blah. So I think everything should be taken with a pinch of salt. I think if somebody values your work, and if a collector wants to support you as an artist and the work for whatever reason that is very, personal to that single person, speaks to them, I don't see the kind of technology standards and token standards as being a blocker. And I speak this because I've seen it. Like, I know collectors will go beyond that. And of course, there will be people who will want to push, for example, OpenSea to adapt and to kind of almost, step up to specific token standards, which is absolutely fair. And I think that should definitely happen because technology is, a big a big and probably the most important kind of driver of this space. But when it comes to kind of figuring out your stance and like what you're doing, I would focus much more on building your craft and like building your creative process and your body of work as best as you can do, rather than almost like focusing on the noise around you shouldn't do that because collectors won't buy it, or you shouldn't do this because collectors won't. Like, that's, you're not doing commissioned work, right? You're here to experiment and create. So do it without kind of being almost like fixed into specific rules that are being set by other people. If somebody wants to collect your work, they'll collect it. Like, I don't think it's a blocker. And if they don't, then probably they're not the right collector, right?
Yeah, that's actually been my experience. Like, the people who like are interested in my work will collect regardless of the fact that it's on OpenSea. So yeah, I think, it's been a good platform for me so far, but I am thinking about other platforms. But yeah, okay, thank you.
And for sure, as you kind of like, for example, what happened, like this is a great example because it's been a great platform for you because it allowed you to enter the space and to experiment with it. And maybe now that you've learned more about the token standards, you as an artist would like for your work to be on ERC 721. And so you consciously make that decision to say, okay, I'm gonna start minting on a ERC type 721 because that's where I want my work to be on in terms of like tech on the blockchain, essentially, right? But I think that it's more of that drives you rather than you are doing it because you've read a thread on Twitter which says that OpenSea and ERC 1155 is not the best token standard for collectors, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thank you so much.
I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something onto the platforms. Just, you brought this up, different about communities and things like this. And I think considering community that's associated with platforms is pretty helpful. And just wanted to, I'm sure most of you are aware of like the object for object and all these like communal based minting and exchange programs that Hick the Nook does. And I think it's really great for building community and also starting off because if you go back into like Twitter and things like that, then you'll see like, a lot of artists and creators and collectors are like minting or mentioning back and forth like these certain programs. And I think that's really good for building a community off the beginning. So just, I think at the inception or when you want to really start getting to moving with your artwork, that choosing a platform that maybe has that community building layer already existing could be a good option.
For sure.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Hey. Okay. Yeah, I just want to sort of add to the sentiment that Colin was talking about. We also have the same question because we now want to move on Ether, on the Ethereum platform, and we can mint on non-origin, and we can mint on Foundation, for example. But we think we would rather choose OpenSea. The only obstacle was like all the noise around it, around the 1155 or 721 protocols. But yeah, just I don't think, for example, I don't think that we are ready to go to a Foundation model, for example. It's built on auction system and it wouldn't necessarily serve as like any good. I think like you need to have connections and such if you have to say anything about it.
So, and I think again, like it's up to, I think, you know, it would be wrong for me to say like do this or do that, because like I really do think that the beauty of being in this ecosystem is to really empower yourselves to make these decisions. And the more artists are empowered to do them without somebody telling them you should do this and you should do that, the better everything kind of will be in general for the ecosystem. That's the whole point of like NFTs, crypto art, and blockchain. Like I really do think that it's such a key. Like I am a big supporter of, you know, allowing artists to have all the tools and skills necessary to build on their own knowledge and making their own informed decisions. What I think is something that is probably, I mean, like, for example, I think, you know, known origin, to I guess, you know, speak for the two platforms that you mentioned, known origin really puts a lot of like effort into showcasing like a lot of different artists. I think that's probably like their strongest suit. They really like make it almost like an effort to even like give possibility for like newer artists to have some form of like appearance or promotion like on their channels, and on their website they do like community calls. So I think, you know, known origin is also like they're one of the oldest platforms in the blockchain as well. Like they've obviously you know, built on a lot of years of history and experience within the space, and I value that a lot, I think. So, you know, I think as I mentioned, like I don't want to give a yes or no, because I think ultimately it's very much up to you. But I would almost like think, you know, where can you as an artist and for your type of work that you do and the body of work that you want to present can find more value. As Ryan said before, like what community can support you the most. If you think Foundation is not where you want to go because you don't like the auction mechanisms that they have, then don't do it. And move to platforms that you think would represent you and what you do better. So if it's known origin, great. If it's OpenSea, great. If it's Hikenung, also great. So I don't think I will ever give like a yes or no answer, because that's not like the nature of how I want to lead these types of questions. But I think it's almost like it's a question that I ask you again. It's like, where do you think that your work can speak the most, and where does it represent you the most as well, like as a person, you know? What platform you think is a platform that builds on how you would like to be represented?
Yeah, thank you. I just was thinking that I think it will be, like Ryan said before, it will be a great idea to sort of get familiar with the community, and I think OpenSea provides a larger audience for that. And yeah, thank you.
Like OpenSea, just to, you know, kind of iterate on this, but like OpenSea is essentially everything, right? Like OpenSea is where all platforms and all projects, you know, come in. So like when you think about OpenSea, like you would almost see it as, I would almost see it like obviously as a great starting point, but almost also as an aggregator of sorts. So consider that, you know, like OpenSea has everything as well. So they are probably much less on the community piece than any other platform, if I have to be like totally honest. And, you know, Ruben and Ryan, feel free to add as well. But I do feel like OpenSea, in terms of like community in itself, probably doesn't focus on that much because they have so much volume as being an aggregator. So if I think about community, you know, the platforms that stand out to me are Hic Nunc, for sure, or Known Origin. Async Art has a very strong community of artists too. Super Rare for sure as well. Pretty much those are the ones that would come to my mind.
I just wanted to ask, Ruben, do you have any experience or like, I don't know, learnings that you've had past Nook? Because I know you're pretty much focused on Nook, but I was curious if you were thinking about any other platforms.
Yeah, so I am mostly based on Nook. I did a few collaboration on other platforms and on Foundation, but I don't really have like a huge experience on other platforms. I'm planning to release my first pieces on Ethereum platforms soon, but yeah, I don't really have much experience.
So I have a couple of questions. Just want to make sure that I answer these. So what are your thoughts about environmental issues around ETH, Rose? Okay, so this is like, this is something that is really kind of like, interesting for me because when Hic Nunc started in February, it went in conjunction with an article that was written by Memo Atkin, and who, you know, I value utmostly, and Joanny Lemercier, who I also value mostly, and, you know, they are both people that I you know, they're big supporters of vertical crypto art as a whole, but like they obviously had a very strong view and focus on what ETH was causing in terms of environmental damage and impact. And essentially, I think this brought a lot of people onto Hic Nunc. I think the actual then blast of Hic Nunc and the way that the community really expanded on there wasn't because of the POS Tezos blockchain, but was because simply of the community that created around artists and collectors on Hic Nunc, and that kind of peer-to-peer accessible art collecting, sharing, exchanging, rather than the actual environmental impact itself. So when I think about environmental issues regarding Ethereum, the question that I ask myself and I ask other people is, it's great if you in your daily life are focused on environmental issues and are somebody who, you know, really values this, then 100% that should be something that is reflected on the way you approach NFTs as well. But before kind of campaigning against Ethereum platforms and against actually artists that mint on Ethereum, it's almost like, what do you do in your daily life, like outside of the blockchain, that will that has an impact on the environment? Like, I think it's almost like a twofold, and again, like, I think it's wrong to say artists shouldn't mint on ETH because of the environmental impact. Because I mean, if that's what you do in your daily life, then great. But if you don't, and if it's just something that you're kind of campaigning on the blockchain, then I don't know how valuable that is. And this is like a very, I think probably like one of my strongest opinions. I'm not usually this strong opinionated, but I do strongly believe in this. Also, I saw that Hic Nunc is experimenting with ETH, ERC 1155. So who knows what will happen there. Ethereum is probably moving to is moving for sure. We don't know when, but it'll be moving to a POS blockchain and I think start of next year, most likely. And if you hear, actually, I will drop it down below. But if you hear Vitalik speaking about Ethereum, and what was his vision and is his vision in building the ETH blockchain, I think a lot of things come into perspective, and the way that he sees the development of ETH and POS versus proof of work, proof of stake versus proof of work, like I think it all contextualizes it really well. So for sure there is an environmental impact. For sure it's something that has to be solved. Will be solved, hopefully. But again, I think campaigning against that for the sole purpose of NFTs is maybe a bit counterproductive.
Totally agree with you, Miracle, on this. I think that it's a good topic, but I also like to say that we're still at the very beginning of this journey. And I believe that there will be new platforms, there will be new blockchains, there will be new currencies that are associated with minting NFTs that are definitely going to address this. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the involvement with the artist community, is that these types of topics are usually one of the first things will be addressed, as we've seen with Hiktanuk.
Yeah, and that is true. I mean, I joined Hiktanuk, especially even at the beginning, because of Johnny Lemercier. And I was really interested in a platform that was, let's say, clean. But then, looking at it, it wasn't as clear. And at the same time, I think Hiktanuk had another advantage at the time, and about a gas fee. On Ethereum, gas fee were getting like crazy high, and that, besides the aspect of the environmental, issues, low gas fee like in Tezos allow, everywhere, all around the world, like even developing countries, to mint easily and to market their work. And so gas fee was really another thing that was really interesting for me in Hiktanuk as a platform.
Sure. Yeah, I completely missed the gas fees, but actually it's super important. And that's, I think definitely, like at the time, gas fees in ETH were like crazy, $200, $300 to mint your work. So obviously that's not sustainable for a lot of people. So yeah, for sure. Negar, I see you have a few questions. So what do you think about mediums as what separates the platform? Do you think they have a taste maybe, and the artist should pay attention to this when applying? And how do we know what platform looks for in terms of medium and style, but judging their artists and what they promote? Like about Foundation, I felt they support computer artists specifically. Is it something I feel, or is it something they mention somewhere? So I don't think platforms, I don't think they openly say we support or we kind of promote certain artwork and certain taste. They generically should be, and highlighting the word should, be unbiased, of course. Like once you're in, once you've kind of passed that first gate, essentially, and you're in the platform, then there shouldn't be a bias on what artwork or artists get promoted on the platform. I think maybe, there's almost like organically there's a shift that has happened between platforms on what sort of style or form of art happens. So if you think about, again, like Hiktanuk, for example, because of the formats that they supported, of the wide range of formats that they supported, then obviously we would see an influx of generative artists, creative coders, interactive NFTs, so the use of like all of what, P5JS processing, etc., because Hiktanuk essentially was the only platform who supported that. Since like I think a while back, even not that long ago, like I think Super Rare, actually I think they only still support a certain file format, which is not huge. I was actually speaking to an artist about that before, and she does audiovisual representation, so obviously like she has big file formats. So I also think it depends on like actually the technicalities of the platform itself and what file formats they support, which almost automatically like brings organic type of like style and genre to be more used or more common to see. About foundation in itself, I really don't know because I have very little experience with foundation myself, and so I can't answer that. Maybe I don't know if Ryan or you know, or Ruben know a little bit more, but in terms of myself with foundation, I really have not experienced with it that much.
Well, personally, I don't have so much experience with foundation, but definitely going into the vein that you just talked about, I think it'd be cool to kind of maybe open a little discussion on maybe one of the channels about like what you as creatives or artists would like to see in a platform that doesn't exist yet. Like, and I'll throw this out, there's like async art has more of like a collaborative function that allows for people to do what they call layers. But I mean, like I said, I think we're still at the very inception and beginning of this also. It's great to hear ideas of maybe how you could see a platform utilizing a utility that's not out yet.
Yeah, and actually a really good shout on async art. Like I think obviously they are a very nuanced platform in itself because they build on a form of art which is called programmable art that is, you know, that they're pretty much the only one at the time that did it. I think Beyond NFT also does it now. But essentially what they do is they allow for artists to build on templates. So day and night templates, 24-hour templates, collaborative artworks with like, for example, 20 to 30 to 40. I think they have 60 artists that just minted a collaboration called Layer Breaker. I will share it here because it's actually a really cool piece. And so, you know, I think async art as a platform is definitely very unique. And somewhere to explore. I know MabLab, you guys are on there, right?
We are where?
Async art.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a bit of a story. We applied. We are not there yet. We just applied. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why it was my confusion. Yeah. We have just.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So async art, I think, is in terms of like applying. I think their general kind of idea is to open up the platform to as many people as possible. Like they don't really want to be gated as such. They just have limited capacities in terms of team. So that's why they take like long to kind of say yes to applications or not. But I don't think like in general they just like look for kind of copy minting or kind of, you know, copyrights or issues of that sorts, but they're not like they wouldn't say no, essentially, if that makes sense.
Hey, this is Nega. I was just I just said it's I think it's a bit technical, like which websites prefer like 3D artists to mint because they have future plans for it. I don't know. I think as we're early for development, and maybe I thought it's something in their principles, as it mentioned somewhere, like they want to go in a direction that is suited their technical developments.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question fully. Like, do you mean that platforms are
I wanted to know if there's something bigger behind this, like in terms of technical, maybe I don't know if there's a reason for photographers to mint on OpenSea, because I saw many photographers do great things there, and in terms of technical, I was curious to know what's the difference between them and not only the community, but if there's a technical difference, like for videos or for interactive arts, and there's, I know, Hen, and because of the technical possibility, artists will be drawn to that. But for some other ones, we don't know where they headed. I don't know how to say it. If they plan to bigger their computer artists base, I don't know how to say it.
Okay, so I'm guessing, if I understand correctly, the question is like, obviously for certain types of artists that are, for example, that mint interactive NFTs or creative coders or generative art, like it makes sense to kind of go on the platforms that support those file formats. But for artists who are like more kind of photographers or as such, which essentially don't have that technical like boundary, what is best? Is that a good? Yes. Okay, cool. I think that's interesting. You know, photographers, actually, what I'm seeing currently is that there's a big boom of like photographers in the space, which is amazing, because I think it was like one of the like areas and genres that was that came in like a little bit later. So it's great to see that that's being like appreciated, and there's a lot of new photographers in the space too. But I think in general, as mentioned before, if you don't have that technical kind of barrier or accessibility aspect of it, even more so, like you should think about what platforms speak to you and your community, and what you want to transmit as the sort of work that you do. Like if you think about it, for example, like async art as a platform, they don't support video, so already like all of the artwork that is on there is still. Obviously they do like programmable art, but the actual like master and layers are still images or still artworks, since they don't support videos as such. So already like that is like an almost like, you know, that part of like the artists are not on there because that work is not supported. So for you as a photographer, it opens up even more options, because you don't even have that technical kind of difficulty. So I guess my answer is always the same. Like think about what platforms you think speak the best to you, and also where you will find your niche of people that will support you, because essentially like the community piece is also super important. I know that like we have a half an hour left, so I wanted to actually open it, like leave, you know, some time for Ruben to really maybe speak about like his experience translating, I guess, like, you know, from like the non-NFT kind of world to the NFT space. I know you have extensive experience within Heket Nunk, and yeah, I would love to hear you know, your thoughts, and also maybe some tips and some ideas that you might want to share with all of the group.
Sure. So thanks so much for having me. And okay, I'm Ruben. I visual effects artist. I do visual effects for commercial films, and I direct music video. But so basically, at the beginning, to be honest, I was kind of skeptical on NFT as a whole. I really didn't understand the concept. And but I saw, you know, my friends sharing. This was probably at the beginning this year. My friends sharing their experiences, and I met people that for actually, you know, NFT, they made a difference for them. You know, people with they had medical debt, they had issues even with COVID and everything, and finally they had a way to, you know, sell their works. While the world was locked down, they were starting to, you know, get their life together. So I saw that, and I changed my idea about NFT. It was really interesting, and I kind of understood the concept. I was a bit late compared to others, but I arrived there, and so my first experience with the NFT, it was back in March, and I was working on a music video for Pussy Riot, the activist group, and we finished this music video, and we started working on an NFT release for Foundation, and so I started learning from there. I wasn't really familiar with the Foundation and all the space, let's say, all the NFT space, but we released, and we also, Pussy Riot was also trying to help like domestic abuse victims in Russia, and with the NFT, and in the end it was really successful. We raised around 180 Ethereum, I think, something like that. And so yeah, at the time though, there was the question, the thing about clean NFT. I was talking with Johnny Lemercier, and so I wasn't really sure what to do, if I should try on Ethereum or something else. And in the end it was Iket Nunc. I was really fascinated by Iket Nunc, by the atmosphere that he had. It was really, really different from the other platform that I that I knew, and it was more like focused on experimentation, especially at the beginning. That was around March, April. So I was really interested in that. And at the same time, it was really interesting, the concept behind Iket Nunc, and even, the gas fees were low. And I saw NFT as a way to really empower artists all around the world. It was really interesting as an experiment. And if you have like very high gas fee, that meant, people somewhere that not able to mint their work. So where is this big revolution about NFT? So in that case, for Iket Nunc, that was much easier to do. It was basically free minting, and there wasn't actually this emphasis on money, how much money. Another platform, it was more about some of the platform, and some of the people on other platform was more about bragging about, oh my god, what just happened, I just made, oops, okay, like a bazillion money or something like that. It was more about sharing and trying new things. So that's why I joined. And community was everything that put everything together, as you said before, and it was really, really important. And I think that's why I really started working on releasing on Iket Nunc at the time. So
I guess I mean, maybe a question for me, like, how do you think you built like that community, like, around you? Like, I know you've obviously, like, maybe you come from like a past kind of like experience, but I guess, like, how did you come into the Iket Nunc community and like build some sort of almost like friends around like what you were doing and the work that you were minting?
Yeah, I mean, Iket Nunc was really nice because probably around March, April, it was really, really kind of punk in a way. So everyone was sharing experiment. It was really easy to like talk with people and connect. And I felt, especially before, I used to create something, in the same format, let's say, of Iket Nunc, like small videos just to promote myself, my work as a visual effects artist. But in that way, it was basically the same. But while on Instagram, it was just posting stuff for likes and hoping to get featured or something, with no actually real conversation with people most of the time. On Iket Nunc, there was this connection with other artists. So When I started back then, I started talking with other, learning from other. It wasn't about shilling pieces. It was really, oh guys, I did this. How much should I sell? I don't know. Let's try in this way. I should try this and that. Talking and connecting with others, basically.
Is there any questions that you would like to ask Ruben, or also Ryan as well, or any or myself too? In the meantime, like, I will answer Linda's question because I think it's actually really cool. What are your thoughts about social platforms like BitCloud, and also your thoughts on your artists creating their own protocols? So, BitCloud, I think. So this is actually a funny story, but I basically initially was looking into BitCloud and thought, but like, I'm talking about months ago. I think it was like March. I don't know. And I thought, oh, okay, this may be an interesting platform. Like, people can support you, but I actually think it's a bit of a, yeah, I don't really understand the concept of BitCloud. Like, I think, people are buying into you need to buy BitCloud actually. So I don't know, it feels very much of a counterintuitive to me. So I am not on there, and I actually saw, I had a couple of people that messaged me saying that there are some profiles as well that are like impersonating vertical crypto art. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a fan personally of BitCloud, but I don't know if it works for you. Again, great. But your other question, your thoughts on artists created their own protocols. I think that's absolutely amazing, and I think for me, it's probably one of the most exciting spaces and places that this ecosystem can lead to is really, as I mentioned before, like empowering artists to build on the technology and to build the technology. There's a lot of platforms and services that are now building smart contracts for artists, which is great. But I also think, if you're interested in building your own smart contract, learning about Solidity, learning about how to work on other chains, for example, Tezos, 100% do it. I actually think potentially IX Shells will be doing a class on smart contracts specifically. So Linda definitely might be tackled in that too. And overall, I think it's extremely exciting. I think artists should look at, if you're interested, of course, should look at learning this programmer language, learning Solidity, learning other programming languages to build your own protocols, because it's amazing if you do. Like, that's the most exciting, I think, place and space right now.
Totally agree with you. And just two to throw out there, if anyone's curious, is I can highly recommend looking into Manifold, and also another platform is Serotonin is coming up and doing some interesting things with this.
Oh, if you want to share them, Ryan, and pop them in the chat, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
What do you think about Try Showtime? Yeah, it's an interesting one. I kind of used it as always. Like, I did a profile. I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like, I'm gonna use it so much and use it for discovery. But actually, I never did. And I don't know. I don't see myself going on there. That's like my opinion on it. But I do think, it's maybe very personal to me. But for example, like, if I think about how I like my research, I guess, with like artists and like for the curatorial videos and stuff like that, to be honest, like, I just go on the platforms, on the marketplaces, and I look through that. Or I don't really use third-party tools if if I have to be totally honest. But I do think that, they're doing a lot of great work. Like, I think they are doing some awesome work on showcasing, for example, like I saw last week, Octavio, like they did a spotlight on Cuban artists. Like, I think all of these are amazing. So there is value in that for sure. Maybe it's just me that I don't use it as much, I guess. I don't know. Do you, Ryan, use Showtime? I don't know if you're there, Ryan.
So I was running back. I was just putting some links in. I do have an account with Showtime, and I'm not on there very often, but I do like that it's more of this communal platform, and I think that's, I don't know, something I'm always gravitating towards.
Awesome. Rose, yeah, I was the same. I wish yeah, but maybe it's also because, there's a lot of places that we go to. So I guess you're just used to going to where you're used to going. I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Thanks. I was just hoping if you can expand on Manifold a bit, because I heard about them and I saw their work, but I sort of don't have the knowledge to wrap my head around it yet.
Manifold, right? You said.
Yeah, Manifold. Yeah.
Yeah. So Manifold, as is one of those examples of let's say an NFT kind of company that is working on building smart contracts for artists specifically, or for projects, let's say. So they build custom smart contracts. They've built pretty much a few already, like from the artists that have worked on Christie's. I know they've built Ferocious, they've built Fuck Renders, they've built quite a few, which is great. They've essentially allowed for artists to have their own smart contract. It is pretty much a silver kind of service at the moment, so they're not open to everyone and anyone. I think potentially they might be in the future as they scale, but for the time being, I think they're not. So they take on specific projects or specific artists. But again, I think, actually it's almost more interesting if you are interested in looking into these things and the way that how smart contracts are built, in building one for you yourself, if you want, if that's something that you think is a space that you would like to explore. I think that's pretty cool, to be honest, and apparently it's not that hard to learn Solidity, I've heard.
Oh, thanks. That's exactly what we were thinking. That's how I sort of heard about them. That's how I found them out on the Twitter. But if there are any other services, because you said Manifold, a bit of have a bit of a different focus.
It is another one. I think Ryan just posted on Residency General. He posted Manifold. I can post Nameless. But again, these are services that are limited at the moment to specific projects or artists, so they're not open to anyone. I think an interesting protocol, actually, that I didn't mention, but I think they are interesting, is Zora, because they do they do kind of, it is open source, so kind of it almost goes a bit hand in hand to what Hic Nunc concept, I guess, in a way is, but they essentially allow for artists or anyone to really build on their protocol. So Zora is definitely one that I would recommend looking into if you're interested in dabbling a little bit in building your your own, or building on their protocol, essentially. Do we have any more questions?
I have one question. It's a little off topic. I was just curious if, I was really wanted to say thanks to Ruben for taking some time out of his schedule to come kind of share his insights on this. But I don't know, personally, I don't know if you'd be interested, but I think it'd be great to see if Ruben could come back and kind of share a little bit of his artistic knowledge and more about just the steps that you made to becoming creative and then moving into NFTs. Because I think it'd be great to share if people are interested.
Definitely. If you want to, Ruben, if you have time.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
there's a question for you from Netzo as well, which actually asks exactly this. So what is your art process, if you're okay to share? I think that could be awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So as you know, I do mostly like point cloud works, and I started this back a few years ago. It's not like a long time I'm doing this, and so I have a few different things, a few different kind of artworks. Some of those are more like dissolving realities. That is basically what I was doing before, and it's more about capturing places in with photogrammetry, like very rough, very quick photogrammetry, and that was what I was doing before. Let's say before NFTs, and I started building on those, and I started creating effects with those, and I really love the idea of capturing parts of reality and then using algorithm and shaders to change this reality and deconstruct that. So even in my artworks that are not very based on photogrammetry, even the dissolving painting series where I start with famous painting and I create this kind of particle effects that moves and create this kind of experience. I do really love the idea of deconstructing and reconstructing places. And in my work, I usually do both the visual effects, and for this thing, I use Unity, so everything is running in real time. And this allows me to really focus on how everything feels instead of, just having time, to render things, to wait for renders and see how it looks. Maybe it looks fantastic, but it doesn't have that kind of flow. And so I use Unity, and at the same time, I also create the sound effects, the sound design of my pieces, and they're all equally important in my way. So I really try to not plan much before starting my works, but mostly go in this session of playing with, effects, particles, maybe writing.
Have you ever
new kind
lost
of
your data
shaders to
due to
create
deleting?
certain effects. And an interesting thing I think is that I use Unity and hand my shaders, my graphic shaders for that. So while the quality is not comparable to like 3D render, Cinema 4D or Blender or whatever, they give me the ability to create something that is kind of mine. I don't know if it makes sense, and it's not perfect, but it's something that I built. So that's probably one aspect of my video, I guess. And another thing about working in real time is that it's not just about NFT, but even music video or other contents. It's really a game changer in this way, because you can create with real-time engines like music video, or short film. I did a work for ASOS. It was 20, almost 30 minutes long music video slash short film, and it's impressive how you can do everything in real time without having to wait for rendering and everything like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think Mablab was asking if you can expand on the use of photogrammetry.
So yes, as a concept, I mean, what is photogrammetry, or how I use photogrammetry, the technical aspect, how it works?
Do you want to answer?
On the technical aspect, and how do you, because we also use photogrammetry, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, so I started, using this technology and photogrammetry, and basically all my visual effects artist career, let's say, just maybe 3 years ago. Because before that, I used to be a web developer and app developer. And at the time, we started an interactive art installation. It was called Future Cities. And the idea was about moving through places scanned with photogrammetry. So I was doing for fun 360 photography. So that's I really enjoyed taking 360 photos. So I tried to think about how can I use my 360 camera to help me create photogrammetry, and that's how I started playing with 360 cameras to capture photogrammetry. One interesting thing about 360 cameras and photogrammetry, I think I don't know if everyone knows, but it's basically taking a series of photo or videos and letting the computer with certain softwares analyze all the frames and reconstruct a 3D model of the place. So an interesting thing about 360 cameras and photogrammetry, especially if using video as a source instead of photo, is that it allows to capture places in a very short time, because usually photogrammetry is a process that you take photos, a lot of photos, and you get a very perfect, after some work, you can get a very perfect view of the place, but it's usually only, on a certain area. With 360 cameras, as I used it, I can just walk on the streets, and in like 30 seconds, in a video of 30 seconds, I can reconstruct a street with people, because it's very fast how I move around, and so the capturing is really fast, and it's not as perfect as a regular photogrammetry, but it kind of allows me to freeze time in this way. So I developed a few tools to help me with that. So capturing 360 camera footage and extracting the frames, analyzing the frames to see which one are sharper, and then cutting those frames into like cubes, so I can have like all the sides and everything, and then processing those frames to create a 3D model. At the same time, I was working into this interactive installation back in 3 years ago or something like that. And so how do we move these points on screen? So that's how I started working on shaders to load and move those points. And I wasn't interested most really about showing just those points on screen, because even other software can do it much better. But I was really interested in turning those points into a huge particle system that I could move around and do all sorts of things. And so yes, it's basically 360 camera photogrammetry, and then rendered in Unity with custom shaders that manage all the effects and lights, shadows, and colors, all these things.
Okay, I know we're a bit out of time, but we have maybe one last question from Warg, which says, what 360 camera do you use? If you want to share.
Oh yeah, sure. So in my work, actually, I use a range of different things, to be honest. I did a few works even with LiDAR scanners, and most of my work, especially my older works last year, was with a really simple Insta360 1X, I think, and it was more than enough to capture places, especially if you see, I don't know if you've seen my dissolving realities videos. Those are all from Insta360, and I actually upgraded to a Coolcam. I think it's a 8K 360 camera, and while it is actually better the quality of the of the footage you can get, but I still think that the Insta360 has something better, maybe about the I don't know, the sharpness or something else. I don't know. I tried something bigger, even 16K camera, but it gets to a point where you have too much, because I start from video, so I have too much data, so it gets too heavy, too slow, and it loses my my vision of it has to be something really fast, really not perfect. So I don't really want to get like texture. I want to keep like raw points, and that's why I like small cameras like Insta360 or Coolcam for certain things, let's say. And I actually use also Kinect for volumetric video. I'm working on a few short film and sequences on films, and for those we use arrays of the Kinect camera, and yeah, that's basically that.
Can I say something? Do we have time? Ruben,
Yeah.
I know you from since 5 years, because at that time we were with my collective doing photogrammetry, and I think only 3-4 artists making photogrammetry that time. Actually, our thing is similar, like capturing the reality and manipulating it in some way on computer. And I really want to talk to you more about technical details, like how you capture sharp frames from the video. And I'm just asking, can we discuss this later, like technical details? Can we reach you through Discord?
Yeah, in some parts, yes. Some parts, are something that I developed like in the course of years. So I can give you some info, but it's mostly like a bunch of Python script connected together to do several things. So I can give you some direction, but all the magic. Some parts are like, especially the shaders and other things are most harder to share, I guess. But yeah, feel free to write me on. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I will ask the Unity thing, but I am doing classical photogrammetry, like taking 10,000 photos. But I think for some projects, the 360 will develop my time a lot, and you are very experienced using 360 and doing photogrammetry. So I want to talk to you later about this.
Yeah, there are actually a few papers on the 360 and in the use of 360 cameras in photogrammetry. There are really nice uses. It really depends by the places you are scanning, actually, because if you see my work, there are usually alleys, small places, streets, places that you want to to work, and you have something very close to you. That's where 360 camera works best. In my opinion.
I am planning to go Napoli in the very narrow streets, and I think the 360, because streets are very narrow, I think the 360 is the way to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. Okay, I just want to be mindful of Ruben's time, because I did say that we're going to end in 5 minutes. So like 5 minutes already passed. So if you have any other questions, maybe like feel free to post them in the chat. Maybe we can then filter them through to Ruben. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Ruben and Ryan, for being on here today. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks a lot. I think it was super awesome to hear from you. And if you guys have any other questions, as always, just feel free to post them on the chat, and we'll answer them from there. Thanks all. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day or good night.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.